Welcome into the December 29th episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. It's game day, folks. Toronto entering Mullet Arena for the first time. They'll be getting some reinforcements as well on the back end as they take on the Arizona Coyotes tonight. We'll tee up that game for you. Also going to touch on these ludicrous fines that were levied onto Sheldon Keefe in the Leafs organization. I've got a bone to pick with the NHL. We'll get to that in a moment. And Canada also victorious in their second game. They wallop Germany, and I think they'll be just fine, Dave. But we'll touch on that game as well. All that more coming up on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts from. Also catch us up on YouTube as well. Subscribe on YouTube. We put out new content each and every day, Monday through Friday. It's all Leafs all the time. And if you're a part of Leafs Nation, you want to be part of the Locked On Leafs family. You can also check out our Discord, which is increasingly growing as well. And the Discord was interesting today because there were some fines that were levied on the Maple Leafs, and the Discord got a hold of that information and went ablaze, went wild on it. And we'll have an opportunity to touch on it as well. Then we'll tee up tonight's game. Got the Leafs and Coyotes. Morgan Rielly returning tonight ahead of schedule, which is really good news for the Maple Leafs. And then Canada cruising past Germany 12-2. Connor Bedard, an unbelievable performance there. So before we get into all that, let me just tell you that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, Dave, let's get into these fines here because when I saw this, I was actually enraged. Like, I understand it. It's pretty black and white. So why don't you post it, the notification that NHLPR sent out there? The Maple Leafs have been fined $100,000 for violating the collective bargaining agreement. And if you read more, it says that the NHL has announced today that they have fined the Toronto Maple Leafs organization $100,000 for the team's travel to St. Louis on December 26, 2022. The team activity was in violation of Article 16.5b of the collective bargaining agreement between the NHL and the NHLPA. The line or the fine money goes to the NHL Foundation. So $100,000, that is pennies for MLSE, and it's pennies for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can take that down now.
Yeah.
But it's still dumb. Like, I think two things can be true. Did the Maple Leafs break the rule, and should they maybe be fined for this? Sure, I suppose so, because they broke the rule. But it's also dumb. So for those who didn't quite understand exactly what went down, so there's a rule that no team activities can occur, and this is in the CBA from December 24th to December 26th. So because the Maple Leafs had a game in St. Louis, which is across the border in a different time zone, all of that, so they decided, okay, let's leave late on the 26th and get there early so we can get a proper sleep and then get up, have practice, and go about our day, not have to worry about traveling on a game day. That was the mindset, I'm sure, of this team. And because of that, because they left at 10:30 p.m. as opposed to 12:01 a.m. on the 27th, they got fined $100,000 because that was considered a team activity that took place on the 26th of December. It's just ludicrous, Dave. Absolutely. Like, I understand it. Before people say, oh, what's the rule? I get it. But there also shouldn't be like cross-border, cross-time zone East-West travel games on the 27th if teams aren't allowed to travel on the 26th.
So there was only one away team that won in the return to action, and that was the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, really? Nice pull. Good stat.
Yeah. So first off, I think the Leafs will take the $100,000 fine that came with that, considering they got the win. Now, if they lost, this would have been adding salt to the wound. But this is where I had the issue, and you brought it up. Why are you scheduling games and then telling teams you can't travel until the wee hours of the morning? Because that's what teams are going. Teams are not going to leave it to chance, considering there have been snowstorms going along
Right. Also that.
all over the place, right? If you've been to an airport within the last week, you'll know that it is the last place you'll want to be right now. And I understand NHL teams fly charter, so they're not with the public, but it is still
subjected to as much just goonness that happens at airports. But yes,
and I get that, but they still have to, they're not exempt from, oh yeah, it is dangerous to fly, so you guys ain't getting out of here. Like that type of stuff still happens. So I just think the NHL should have a little bit of leniency for those away teams that probably wanted to leave earlier, decided they couldn't leave earlier, so they had to travel at a stupid hour and get to their games.
So I was going back and forth with somebody who works in a different organization, and what they were telling me was, I mean, obviously they were in full agreement with what the league did, saying, I mean, it's a pretty cut and dry rule. You're not supposed to do anything. All the other teams who traveled on that day left at like 8 or 9 a.m., got into the city that they're playing, had a quick skate, morning skate, and then had a nap, and then were ready to go for the game. That's what all the other teams did. Toronto got a leg up by doing so, therefore, and by breaking the rule. Therefore, they got fined for it. And the word that he kept using was precedence. You can't, you have to set precedence where if that rule is broken, this has to happen. I believe I had read on Twitter that this also happened in 2015. The Philadelphia Flyers were flagged for something similar. So there is some precedence already of this happening, and they just don't want that to happen. And look, I understand it. So the way that I got into an argument with this gentleman about it, and from his perspective, coming from somebody who's knows the team and is part of the NHLPA in a way, telling me that guys already are sacrificing and only getting 3 days away from the team, and by forcing players to come back on the 26th, they may have to skip out on one of their days off, which isn't cool apparently. So that was the argument that I heard for why what the Maple Leafs did was not cool, and why ultimately this is a rule, and why this is in the CBA, and the fact that they got fined for it was because it was a clear violation. But my point more so, like, I think two things can be true. The Maple Leafs broke the rule, broke the law, let's say, and
Consequence.
were appropriately fined for it. I'm okay with that. But I just think that it is silly, though, that you schedule a team to play on the 26th in St. Louis when they are all in Toronto. Like, just travel that day to St. Louis and then get them to play, I think is just kind of silly. And I guess the only way that you can get around that, to guarantee that, is if you're going to have games on the 27th, the first day back from the Christmas break, make them all like close regional games, like Toronto. Have them play Buffalo or Ottawa, games where they can get there like that. So it's not, you don't have to cross the border. If you are crossing a border, it's only an hour and a half away, not necessarily, in a different time zone and a 3-4 hour flight. So those are the my two bugaboos, I guess, I have with this whole thing. And me personally, if I was one of the Toronto Maple Leafs, though, I would have rather left at 10:30, landed at midnight, as opposed to leaving at either midnight or 8 a.m. the next day, and then having to, wake up early, have to go down to the airport at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, battle all that traffic at 6, 7 a.m., and then have to get on the plane, go, not really get a full comfortable sleep. You're traveling on a game day. Like there's a lot of issues that would go along with that. It'd be so much easier and simpler just to travel down 10 p.m., roll into the airport at 10 o'clock, 10:30, you're on your flight, and you head out to St. Louis. You get in there. I think they arrived like shortly after 11 p.m. local time. They do gain an hour by making that flight, by the way, which I think is kind of funny. They also do gain an hour by going to St. Louis. But regardless, so they arrived like 11 o'clock local time, which would have been roughly after midnight Toronto time. And now you're landing at midnight and you can get a full sleep and then go about the whole next day on the 27th without worrying about travel, without worrying about, messing up your schedule, your sleep schedule, all that. And I guarantee you, like, there would have been some sort of poll that was taken, and the team probably elected to do this. I don't know this for sure, but I would hope that's the case. And if the team elected to do that, and they basically said it would cost us $100,000 fine to do so, but it would benefit us greatly, and they decided, okay, let's do it, then I'm happy that the Maple Leafs did this and broke this rule. It's kind of, it reminds me of, remember that viral clip of Mark Cuban years ago where he was on like I don't know, a television charity telethon type of thing. And they're like, oh, we just heard because you used the F word, you're getting fined $15,000 and it's going to some charity. He's like, I got $15,000 fine, 15K for using the F word. Like, yeah. And what's charity? Yeah. You want to do it again? F it. He just swore again. It's like they have FU money and it didn't matter because it was worth it. And to the Maple Leafs, I guess they felt that it was worth it. And the fact that they were the only road team to get that win also yesterday, I mean, kind of definitely makes it worth it. And they'll say, hey, we'll pay 300K if it guarantees us a victory, 1 out of 82. I think that's worth it for Toronto.
Well, and I also think the Sheldon Keefe fine was certainly worth it too, considering I was a little surprised. He must have said something during the game when I saw he was fined 25,000. I'm like, I've seen coaches like show a lot of not so nice things to the refs. I was a little surprised he was fined for it, and I'm just like, man, he should have done a lot more because he should have gotten his money worth.
Yeah.
Game.
Yeah, I guess he didn't really get his money's worth, right? In that aspect, Sheldon Keefe was fined 25,000 also for basically sounding off on the officials in a not so nice way yesterday. But like the officiating, there was many of missed calls. I mean, there was the one, the missed high stick on Zach Aston-Reese. There was the pick on Jordy Ben. There was a couple of reasons why Sheldon Keefe, was angry and upset with the officiating last night. And if you read his lips, I mean, he told Wes McCauley, like, wake the F up, Wes. Like, come on, call these freaking plays. And he did step down to ice level and started giving it to the officials. I don't know if he crossed the line there. But anyways, he gets a $25,000 fine. I wonder, Dave, if this was like, since they were already pissed off at Toronto, they also said, you know what, we're also going to, lay the law down on Sheldon Keefe and give him a $25,000 fine as well. Like if they wouldn't have broken the rule the night before, would they have been so harsh on Sheldon Keefe this time around? I don't know. Maybe they would have. But, maybe that was part of the equation. They're just like, yeah, let's just double down on making Toronto bring out the checkbook, which doesn't really hurt them anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's losing any sleep over what happened with these fines.
No. Did we ever get an update, by the way, on Dan Kelly when he was shoving Michael Bunting? Like, did he get a fine of any kind? Anything?
I was told that there was some sort of conversation had, and
like an apology. Yeah.
I think Michael Bunting and him kind of had a discussion too, and apparently, water under the bridge, we're all good.
Which is fine. I'm totally okay with that. But if you ask me, what Dan Kelly did was a billion times worse than what Sheldon Keefe did. And the fact that you're fining Sheldon Keefe actual money out of his pocket, I mean, the Leafs will probably pay it, but still, you're fining him for his actions. Meanwhile, the actions of the official, the game prior, a couple games before, to me was way worse. It's a double standard that's honestly just kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But anyway, c'est la vie. That we'll put that one to the side. That is under the bridge. for Bunting and Dan Kelly, but I just want to show somewhat of the hypocrisy when it comes to officials and the National Hockey League. All right, Dave, we'll take a quick break when we get back. Some updates from practice ahead of the Coyotes game that'll be taking place tonight at Mullet Arena. Morgan Rielly back with the Buds. We'll tell you who his partner is going to be. That'll be in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and that's betonline.net. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to hockey and also basketball. You've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti with me, my co-host here at Locked On Leafs. We got a new podcast coming out to you each and every day, Monday through Friday. If you haven't subscribed yet, and 50% of our viewers have yet to subscribe to Locked On Leafs, what are you doing? Give us a nice little Christmas gift, a nice New Year's present, and sign up for Locked On Leafs. Because our New Year's resolution for 2023, we want 5K subs by the end of the year. 5,000 subs by the end of the year. I mean, we're not that far off. We just got to double our number, which is pretty much would keep us on track of where we're at. I mean, we started this YouTube channel in February? I believe you came on. We kind of started things February-ish, and we've already got it up to roughly 2,400. So, I think getting to 5K by next year won't be too difficult, but we do need the help of you guys listening and watching the program. So even if you're a podcast listener via audio format, head over to the YouTube channel and just give us a nice little subscribe just for the support, and share it with all your friends and family who are also diehard Leaf fans, to get them up to date on everything Maple Leafs each and every day. And speaking of updates, we got some updates from practice from yesterday, Dave. Morgan Rielly is back. He's feeling good. He's ahead of schedule. Wasn't expected to be back until about early to mid-January. And this was like a week ago. That was the update. Like literally a week ago. It was like, yeah, probably still a few weeks out for him, 2 to 3 weeks or so. And then all of a sudden, actually, he's going to return before the new year. And now he's getting back into the lineup. His defensive partner, Timothy Liljegren. So out comes Jordy Ben. In goes Morgan Rielly. So it'll be Rielly, Liljegren, Brody, Timmins, and then Hall and Giordano will remain with each other. Sandin still not quite ready to go. Has been practicing, but still not ready to play. Morgan Rielly, what I found interesting, though, about Rielly's return, I mean, we've talked about this on this show, where I feel like where he's really been missed, not necessarily the defensive end. I think there's more than enough conversations to have about his defensive acumen, with the Maple Leafs, and whether or not he'll help or hinder this team back there. But I thought that he would be able to help this power play, which has been rather lackluster since he went out. It was operating sub 20% since his injury, and this is a power play with Rielly last year that was number one in the league, around 30%. So him coming back, I thought would disband the 5-forward unit, and he would take on that fifth role as the guy who mans the power play at the point. Not the case, and I'm curious if this is just because they want to ease Morgan Rielly in, or if they legitimately want to go with this 5-forward unit. But today at practice, Morgan Rielly was skating alongside Connor Timmins, and it's a 2 defenseman PP2 instead. So no defenseman on the first power play. It's going to be the 5-forward unit. And then on the second power play, Morgan Rielly and Connor Timmins up front. And then they got the trio of forwards up top, and who will play 20 seconds of power play time at the end of it. Does that surprise you too, that that's kind of what the Leafs are doing here?
Yeah, just a tad. I mean, you kind of think that with Rielly back, everything would kind of be status quo with him. But maybe this is also, he's coming back from a knee injury. You don't want to overdo it with him. And we were seeing 5 forwards on the power play, right? So I think whoever's at the point it just seems like for the Leafs, it doesn't matter all that much, whether it's Rielly, whether it's Sandin, Timmins, and I mean, whoever they can think of to go out there. So yeah, it was a little surprising, but maybe this is also just, they don't want to throw too much at Morgan Rielly, right? Coming off of a pretty lengthy absence.
Yeah, I know I did a little bit of a deep dive, and I was chatting about this with Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. And, one of when you look at the power play, one of the key things that has gone down since Morgan Rielly departed was Matthews' shots on goal. Like, this is a guy who was often the trigger man because it was very static, I guess you could say, the way that they were set up. But with this 5-man unit, you see a lot more fluidity in where they're at, and it's not necessarily Austin Matthews who's setting up in his office as the trigger man on the flank. Sometimes you see him up top, sometimes you see him in the bumper role, and sometimes he's not really factored in a whole lot on the play, and sometimes he could be net front and looking for a tip or a high tip or deflection. It does in a way open up more possibilities for more guys to get involved, but at the same time, you did see a lot of success with Morgan Rielly working that point and manning that power play, quarterbacking it from the back end, the way that he can kind of skate and um, toe the line there. But I guess they'll continue with the 5-man unit for now, and we'll see how long that'll last. But it'll be good to get Morgan Rielly back into the fold, regardless, even at 5-on-5. I mean, because this team, although I see a lot of people beacon off and saying that he's terrible defensively and this team got better when he came out of the lineup, the team is still going to be better off with Morgan Rielly than without. I still firmly believe that.
I do as well. Like, I don't see how you don't want your best. You want to see the best lineup out there, right? Like, I don't think there's going to be any, like, I don't think you're going to see much of a change. And like, I know some people may think otherwise, but I don't think that you're going to be messing up too much with bringing in Rielly, right? Like, I don't know how people think that are thinking that way. Like, you just invested a lot in this guy too. He's not going anywhere. So he's he's going to make this team better. Like, there's no part of me that thinks that, I don't know if I want to be putting him in the line, but it's like, no, like, I was actually pretty happy to see that he's coming back, and it actually should make this team a lot better, and he's not going to be, and the best thing about this, he's not going to be asked to do that much because it's been shown they don't need to ask him to do that much because all the other defensemen have picked up the slack.
Yeah, you're right. And since he left, we've also seen more of a buy-in from the forwards who have, given the defenseman an easier outlet too out of the zone. So a lot less mistakes being made by D-men, and hopefully that can continue, and Rielly can get that help as well, and that can end up resulting in some positive, some positive plays going up the ice. The one other difference we'll see in the lineup tonight looks like Dryden Hunt will finally make his Maple Leafs debut. We thought maybe it was going to happen in Philadelphia. It did not, but Dryden Hunt will make it in Arizona. So he'll play tonight. Joey Anderson, the odd man out in this game. Makes a little bit of sense, but I'm kind of excited to see what Dryden Hunt can bring. He's a rough and tough kind of guy. He's a dude who's going to go out there and he's going to lay a couple of big hits and try and energize the team quickly. I think that's what they're expecting him to do. And, playing him against, a lesser opponent in the Arizona Coyotes is probably the right thing to do. He's now had a couple of full practices with the group, understands the systems a little more, knows how he can be defensively responsible and help him out. And he's already a defensively responsible guy. That's really his bread and butter, to be honest. So I think that he'll be just fine in a fourth line role. So we'll get a chance to see Dryden Hunt in Maple Leafs uniform tonight as well. All right, Dave, we'll take one more quick break. And when we get back, let's tee up tonight's game, talk about some of our keys to the game. But before that, how about a word from one of our show sponsors?
Yep. So this is from the NHTSA. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few become a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home. Okay, it's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows risks about driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from doing it. And while getting behind the wheel under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play safe, and plan ahead to get a ride home. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Little Ron Burgundy moment there for you, wasn't it?
I was scrolling. I scrolled a little bit too fast on that one, a little too fast, but a very, very important message there.
Very important message. Don't need to be, especially around the holiday season. Don't need any accidents of any kind. There's already enough nonsense going around in the world. Definitely don't need to add to it with with driving under the influence. Welcome back into the Lockdown These podcasts. It's Mike DiStefano and David Morassutti. Toronto in Arizona tonight, but they're not going to be in a traditional arena like we typically see them, 15, 20, 25,000 seat arenas. That's what the NHL is all about, right? You leave those old barns of, St. Catharines with the Ice Dogs, or if you're in, Prince Albert, or if you're in Regina, like wherever you're at, you finally make it to the NHL and you're thinking, all right, for the 20,000 screaming fans. And then you go to Arizona and it's a 5,000 seat arena on the campus of Arizona State University. That's right. The Maple Leafs are finally getting their opportunity to play at the historic Mullet Arena, Dave.
It still bothers me that to this day the NHL is okay with this situation in Arizona. Look, I've heard that the ice surface is the best ice surface in the league, based on
Yeah.
what Arizona players have been saying.
I actually did hear, I listened to the Maple Leafs and their post practice skate today. Both Morgan Rielly and Austin Matthews both also noted that the ice surface is really good. So that's true.
That's a positive. But the real question is, do the visiting teams finally have a locker room?
I believe they do. Ish. I
Ish. Is
believe they
this
do ish. They do have a locker room. It's not, I don't think, the whatever stalls and random room that they're put up earlier. Because remember the Yotes went on like a 14-game road trip to get that arena up to snuff. And I think now it is, now that they're back. But it's still going to be very interesting. I think I did also hear Sheldon Keefe mention that you still have to walk outside a little bit to get from the dressing room to the main rink. So there's still that little bit of a catwalk outdoors to get there. That is going to be interesting. It's almost as if it's an outdoor game, but it's not clearly an outdoor game. Well, I mean, they could, I suppose, although it's in the middle of the desert. That would be interesting to try and keep that ice surface ready to go. But so there's a couple of differences, I guess, that Mullet Arena offers that most NHL rinks do not. But look, this is an opportunity. I'm curious to see what the atmosphere is going to be like. At least, I know it's on the college campus, and I know they have some tickets set aside for college students, and apparently, they have been coming out, and it has been a little bit of an atmosphere at these games. With only 5,000 people, the acoustics the acoustics are different because it's so much smaller than typical. So I will be interested to see how this all kind of looks, feels, and even sounds. I'm curious how it sounds with such a compact arena playing an NHL game. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching the first game and thinking, okay, it's different. You're especially the sight lines. It's not. I just also remember that it wasn't even full capacity because they had to use some of the seats to make the broadcast NHL quality because they needed the room for that. It's not even full capacity.
They didn't sell tickets and they used that as an excuse. Are you sure that wasn't it?
I was told from people who were at the arena that this was the case.
Uh-huh.
It's you know what I do think it's you know what they can sell it on the college atmosphere. It's already been famous for a big brawl this season. I don't know if you saw that Bruins brawl with the Yotes fans after. I think it was actually after that overtime win that Arizona had against Boston. There was a big scrap. So like, I don't know, it seems like they're trying to go with this college atmosphere. It can work for. I thought this is just a temporary for a year, sure, but this is not just a 1-year solution. That's where I was kind of not happy with this whole situation, but it's what the league has right now. I mean, it's the only thing that Arizona has right now, so you got to make it work somehow.
At least 3 years they're gonna be in this building. At least 3 years. So if y'all think that Austin Matthews is leaving Toronto to go play in a 5,000 seat arena, I mean, it's just not happening. It's just not. Like, let's be honest, it's not going to happen. And let's just pray that they also don't end up with Connor Bedard because that'd be very unfortunate as well. We'll get to him in just a moment. But quickly, let's go through our 3 keys to the game tonight. Give me a couple of keys from you, Dave.
This is the Arizona Coyotes. Please play them like the Arizona Coyotes and not the Boston Bruins. Like, these are games where the Leafs have done a very good job against really bad teams, but
Don't you want them to play as if they're the Boston Bruins, though? Because I think playing them like the Coyotes has been the problem.
no, but like what I mean is that you've recently played the Ducks. You play them like the Ducks in that you should beat them.
Mhm.
Like I what I mean is don't get intimidated in any way by the Coyotes. There should be no reason for that. Think about the last time you
Well,
played
no,
this.
man, they got Nick Ritchie over there. Hey, he's got 7 goals on the year. 7 goals for Big Rich.
Ask how many of those came against the Leafs.
Yeah, I know he did. He had a
Uh,
good game.
so are we putting money? Are we putting money on BetOnline on Nick Ritchie to score a
Nick
goal?
Ritchie, Tyler Boyd will probably end up with a point. I might put over half a point for Tyler Boyd also. Yeah, those sound like pretty sound bets to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, keep going.
Matt Murray, I want to see how he does. They gave him a little bit of extra time off. I feel like he's going to be a bit busy in this game. I like it just screams like, they're on the road. This is a new surrounding, new environment. I think the first Matt Murray's going to have to come out I think strong in this first period. That's all I'm going to see. And I think Austin Matthews, this is going to be his night. He's home ish. I don't think Mullet Arena. Actually, he did spend some time training at the Arizona State University. I just don't know if it was I'm pretty sure it was
I
the
don't
old
think it was Mullet
facility.
Arena. Yeah, I don't think it was Mullet Arena. I don't know how much action though he's going to play. I mean, the way that Toronto has fared and how they've been able to limit the Coyotes, quite literally, worst shooting team in the NHL, averaging a league low 24 shots on goal, second worst 2.04 expected goals, and scoring chances, I believe, are also second worst to only the Chicago Blackhawks. And let's see, high danger just for giggles. Yes, second worst in when it comes to creating high danger chances for themselves as well. So I don't know how busy Matt Murray will be. It might be similar to a couple of his starts recently where he's actually not going to be all that busy, and he's going to have to be good. The odd shot he ends up facing. On the other end, though, I think that Karel Vejmelka will be extremely busy. And look, I think he's a very underrated goaltender, this Vejmelka kid. And I remember last time this team was in Arizona, he nearly goalied Toronto. Like he legitimately, actually, he may have goalied Toronto. I think it was a 2-1 loss, and the team put up like 50 shots or something like that and lost 2-1. I think that might have happened last time they were in Arizona. Either won 2-1 or lost 2-1. I should know that.
He had the game of his life.
Yes, he did. Regardless, he did. And he's actually having a really solid year this season as well. He's third in the NHL in goals saved above expected. And that's really because the Coyotes are horrible defensively. I mean, they give up a lot of high danger scoring chances, and they're pretty much, when it comes, they're just as bad, I guess, at negating high danger chances as they are at generating high danger chances, which is never a good recipe. And when you're playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, who feast and are second in the NHL in high danger goals, 4 per 60, Toronto's been known to finish on those opportunities. So, they can score. I think Toronto needs to be able to finish on those chances and, get traffic to Vejmelka, create those rebounds, try and get those tips and those secondary opportunities on him. Because if he sees a puck, he's going to stop a puck. But if you get him going, you get him moving, you tip pucks and you deflect them and you get the pucks moving themselves, maybe that'll give you a little bit of a better option. And then ultimately, I'm also, a key for me is to ease Morgan Rielly into this game. Ease him in. I don't need him to go up there and play 25 minutes for this one. Really don't need that at all.
Nope.
I think if he comes in and you want to even treat him as like the third pair guy, get him 18, 19 minutes maybe, and potentially a shot up on the power play on PP2 just to get him those reps and those minutes if they end up getting a bunch of power plays. That would be okay with me, but ultimately ease them into this one, and they should be able to come away with 2 points. Because you're right, they've actually been playing opponents that they should beat. They've been beating them. They haven't been playing down to them anymore. They've been actually fisting them, to be quite honest with you, which is what we expect from the Toronto Maple Leafs. So hopefully that happens again tonight. Speaking.
Also, how do I forget the Connor Timmins revenge game?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bet for him to score a goal, for sure. Sure.
You talked about the Coyotes blue line and how bad it's been. I'm just like, how did Connor Timmins not crack this blue line?
It doesn't make that. I was talking about that today with Jonas on Leafs Lunch. It doesn't make sense to me how Curtis Douglas was the best offer that any of the other 30 general managers gave the Arizona Coyotes to pry Connor Timmins from them, and no one could beat Curtis Douglas. I don't understand it, but thank you. That was a fleecing from Kyle Dubas. Speaking of fleecing and beating teams you're supposed to, Canada cruising past Germany. Massive blowout thanks to an exceptional power play. They went 7 for 10 on the power play tonight, 5 of which coming off of a 1 5-minute major. It was unbelievable that they had scored 4 or 5 goals on that one major. 23 shots on the power play alone. It was insane. Bedard was unreal. 7-point night for him. Had a hat trick, tied a team record for points in a game. Really quickly, just your quick thoughts on Canada and their response to the first loss that they had suffered in this tournament.
I wasn't concerned about them losing to Czech. I thought it was a kind of not the worst thing to happen because it makes you kind of wake up a little bit and smell the coffee, realize. I was reading actually just before we were recording an article by Paul Grant, who was there, and like the big thing about Canada in this game was like discipline, like being disciplined, and like this one doesn't just mean like not taking stupid penalties, but just doing the right things when you have the puck, making the right plays. I think in a way Canada didn't want to say, oh, we just didn't want to do the Michigan stuff anymore, and that's why they were talking about discipline, but not a single Michigan was attempted against Germany.
No, not a single Michigan. And they just played a lot of north-south hockey.
Yeah.
A lot of north-south, and that was their game plan, and they executed it well. They took shots on goal. They had guys go straight to the net, get traffic in front of the goalie, and they're able to find some shooting lanes, and were able to find the back of the net quite often. So good on them. Good on Canada for getting their first victory, I guess, of the tournament. And I believe I saw they're favored by 10.5 goals now against Austria tonight. 10.5 goals. That's the betting line.
I mean, if you saw what Austria has looked like in this,
Yeah, you're right. They have been utter garbage, but still, to expect a team to win by 10.5 goals is just insane. But they could do it. They showed it tonight. They could do it, and I'll be curious to see how much more Connor Bedard can pad those stats. Because 7 points in one game, I think this guy's going to break records in this tournament. Break multiple
I
records.
think he needs 2 more goals to pass Jordan Eberle for all-time goals at the World Juniors for Canada. That's happening. Like, I don't see how that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen by like the second period.
Yeah, he had 7 points against Germany. Very good chance he might up that against Australia.
Wouldn't be out of the question. So, yeah, I'm excited for that one. That'll be a good one. So we got kind of back-to-back games. You got this one that'll be around 6 o'clock, and then at 9 o'clock. Yeah,
Perfect.
9 o'clock, roll right into Team Canada, or roll right into the Leafs. So, yeah, lots of hockey to watch if you're a Leafs and Canada fan. All right, Dave, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Also follow the show at Locked On Leafs. Leave a like and a comment down below if you're on Twitter. Subscribe. Would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button on YouTube as well. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. We'll break down the game against the Arizona Coyotes. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.